Hey everybody, we're going to talk about Apocalyptic Racing and the legendary Toyota 20R engine. However, this is not going to surprise you. We just shoot this in the middle of the day on a Wednesday. I have a whole bunch of other stuff to do, so I'm just going to leave it up to Nick until this is done. Sorry.
This is how these things go, but fortunately, I am somewhat familiar with a Toyota 20R.
This won't take forever, excuse me for 1 sec.
Yeah, so I owned a Toyota truck. I had a 20R. It was a great vehicle, but is it as indestructible as everyone on the internet says?
Yes, well!
Okay, so maybe the 20R isn't so indestructible in Lemons Racing. We've had a similar experience with the Chrysler Slant 6, which we'll also talk about in another Lemons World episode, but there is a bit of an asterisk on why these engines tend to explode in Lemons. More on that later. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the engine.
Oh yeah.
The 20R is one example that comes from the gigantic R family of engines. It was made from 1953 until 1997. It's essentially like Toyota's version of the small block Chevy. First engine was just called the R. It was pretty humble. It was 1.5 liters, cast iron, push rods, non-cross flow design, made 60 horsepower, 4,400 RPM, power peak. The red line wasn't that much farther beyond that. Not very exciting, but very simple, very reliable. That became a trend for the whole series. There were some outliers. There was an 18RG, which was a twin cam. There was a 22RTE, turbocharged. Those are really the exceptions to the norm. These things were designed for long-term, low-speed operation. If you want a really exciting Toyota engine, there are probably better choices.
2JZ engine, no shit.
All right, so 20R. In the grand scheme of the R engines, it's relatively advanced, relatively late in the run. Unlike the debut R engine, it had an aluminum head, single overhead cam, hemispherical combustion chambers, cross-flow design. It was also under square, which is a technical term. The stroke length is longer than the bore diameter. It's basically a way of saying it's a low-revving tractor motor. And that's why it was well-suited to the Hilux truck, and also a big reason why those trucks developed a reputation for reliability. And I also have another theory. The 20R was very reliable. I owned one. It was very reliable. Maybe it would have become famous just because of that reliability. But there's another factor. What do the 20R and its later cousins, 22R, 22RE, what do they all have in common? Well, they have a big old sticker on the front of the engine that says what their name is. There's some later Toyota engines, like the 1NZ and the 5VZ, that are also super reliable. No sticker, not so famous. Going back to what I said about the R series being generally a low-revving truck motor, surely there's no problem with running such a design at high RPM for hours on end, like you would at a Lemons race.
Yes, well!
This minor problem is exactly what Apocalyptic Racing out there in the Midwest discovered when they brought their 20R powered 78 Celica to Gingerman way back in 2012. After a few hours of driving around, more or less at redline, they ejected a rod out the side of the block, famously fixed it by removing the bits of the exploded rod and piston, patching the hole in the block with a piece of license plate and JB weld. This obviously earned them a heroic fix trophy. And this is also the kind of experience that would cause lesser Lemons teams to send the car to the crusher and take up something else. I don't know, golf.
Hey, pop the hood.
Pop the hood?
Pop the hood. 2JZ engine, no shit.
What did I tell you?
But this was the beginning of a long and illustrious career for Apocalyptic Racing and that 78 Celica. After a few races of running the 20R motor, Apocalyptic Racing got in the habit of essentially replacing one or more engines per race, started to get to the point where they were having trouble finding them in junkyards. After all, the 20R hasn't been made in a while. But while they were in the junkyard, they noticed that there was another kind of engine that was plentiful in junkyards.
Yes!
It was made by General Motors.
Yes!
And it was the super powerful, race-dominating, LS-based small block V8.
Yes, well!
Actually not that, but instead the Ecotec 4-cylinder. I think they put it in a lot of cars. I mean, it came originally maybe in the Cavalier. They put it in the Cobalt after that. I think it might have come in the HHR. Jay, are you in a position to chime in here? I could use some help on these Ecotec cars.
What are you asking?
I was just listing the cars that came with the General Motors Ecotec. I know it's Cavalier, it's Cobalt, it's HHR, maybe the Malibu. Do you know any others?
Yeah, it's Saturn Vue, the Alero, Vauxhall VX220, Sunfire G5, L Series Saturn Ion, the Alpha 159, Opel Signum, Pontiac Solstice, Saturn Sky, of course, obviously. Elfin T5, the Fisker Karma had that motor. Ecotec was in the Regal. Saab 9.5 had an Ecotec. SLS, the Verano, all of those platform. Chevy Orlando, the Equinox. Captiva, the Pursuit. The Terrain, the Holden Commodore. There's the Camaro. There's all the Cadillac XTs. There's the Blazer. There's the Acadia, the Colorado. There's the Impala. There's the ATS. There's the Envision. It was in the Zafira. It's in the Fiat Chroma. To the Canyon, it was in the Acadia. It's been in a few things.
Dude, wow.
And Polaris Slingshot. So, continue. Do you need more from me?
No, I think that covers it.
All right.
Okay, so what the hell is an Elfin T5? What the hell is a Buick Envision?
I don't know.
The point is, this is a plentiful and cheap engine, which is what Apocalyptic Racing was after. Initially, they were using the 2.2 liter version from a Cobalt, then they realized something surprising. This was actually reliable. So, after a few races with that, they upgraded to a 2.4 liter version from a Malibu, which is good for 170 horsepower, which, as Judge Eric points out, is about the same output as a Honda B18, but the Ecotec Malibu was 10 years later and had 25% more displacement, whatever. We can't be too hard on GM engineering, because relative to the car it came out of, the 2.4 Ecotec is a real gem. And, most importantly, 170 horsepower and a 78 Celica, and of course, drivers that don't up. This combo is good enough for Apocalyptic to eventually win a Lemons race overall at Gingerman in 2019. So, they've come a very long way from fixing their engine with license plates.
Wait, did I miss it?
Yeah, it's good. We got it covered.
Okay, cool.